This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
The death of my son, moving 3 times in 6 months, my parents' divorce, my husband's job loss.
I was, 12 weeks postpartum. My then husband came out to me as transgender, and just a couple weeks later, our son suddenly died.
Hi.
Hi.
You had a hard time.
I did. I did it.
That was really hard. You did it?
Yeah, I'm back in the car.
I'm so proud of you.
You're connecting to audio.
Okay, and I have my microphone.
Okay, there you go.
I'm so excited about my microphone. I've never felt more legitimate in my entire life.
You should introduce the podcast today now that you have an official microphone.
Okay, hi. Welcome to As Long As I'm Living. We have had a big day here. Alina had a bad day. Judith had a grieving day. So we thought we'd hop on now and just kind of talk about what the bad days look like.
Today was not a good day.
It was not a good day. So Alina, do you want to start by just saying what happened?
Yeah, so I don't even know what happened or what started it. I woke up this morning. Actually, no, I went to bed last night not feeling good. I was up for a long time in the middle of the night. And I didn't feel good all day. I felt like on edge. And then my mom texted me this morning and said that I didn't need to get into all that.
You had to go to your old house.
Yeah, it turned out I had to go over to my old house unexpectedly. The
house where Quinn lived and you and Chloe lived.
The house where Quinn lived, the house where Chloe and I lived, the house that we're selling now. So I wasn't expecting that to be on my calendar today. Today was a day that I had off of work, and so I was planning to spend it resting, and I wound up spending it like running errands and being in my haunted house, and it wasn't good. I stopped to get groceries, and I went to the closest grocery store to our old house, and that grocery store, it's I haven't been there since Quinn died. I only went there a couple times because it was COVID. So we were getting our groceries delivered for the most part. So I only have a couple of memories in that grocery store. And one of them is picking out pumpkins for our family, our little porch family of pumpkins. And one was bringing 3-month-old Quinn there in the carrier. And I have been kind of putting off going there. And I had kind of decided I would just never go back there. And I arrived and I was like, in the car, I was like, I don't know that I can do this. I texted you, right? I was like, I don't know if I can do it. I really don't. But I did it.
How did the trip go? You said you did it.
Yeah.
So you made it out alive, but what was it like being in there?
It was so hard. Literally from the second that I walked in, I was sad. I was immediately overcome with all of these memories. And I just started tearing up the second that I walked into that grocery store. I remember the feeling of him on my chest. Like I used to take him on a lot of walks, and walking with him in the carrier is something that I used to have a physical memory of very frequently. Like that was something that I would call to the front of my mind pretty frequently. And I guess honestly, I hadn't really thought about what that felt like in a while, but it came, kind of screaming back to me at the grocery store. And, grocery stores are not easy when you're grieving or mentally ill in any way, because they're very stimulating. Like it's a lot of lights, it's a lot of stuff. Like you're looking for things and it's unfamiliar. And I was so sad. And I turned and I walked down an aisle that I knew I didn't need anything in, just because I had a specific memory of walking down that aisle with Quinn And I kind of wanted to share that with him again, even though obviously he wasn't there.
Right.
So I did that. And honestly, once I accepted that I was just going to be crying in the grocery store, it actually wasn't quite as bad. Once I was just like, okay, I'm just going to be the crazy crying lady at the grocery store. I turned into the frozen aisle to get ice cream. And it turns out that grocery store, that's the same as the baby aisle. So I walked past the diapers and cried, and I walked past the body wash, and I decided I wanted to smell Quinn's body wash. So I like ripped the top off of one of them, and it got all over my hands, and I smelled it, and it smelled so good, but it also made me so sad. It really brought me right back. But that smell is still one that always brings me close to him. But, then I shoved it to the back of the shelf. It had body wash. I would love to see video of me wandering the aisles of that.
It sounded almost like you were in an alternate universe, like you were a ghost yourself, like wandering through the aisles.
That is kind of how it felt. And like I was just wandering aisles. I only needed to get like 5 things. And I was just wandering all the aisles, and I was wandering the frozen section, and this employee approached me and was like, "Do you need anything?" And I turned to him, and I think he didn't realize that I was like crying. I was like, "Oh no, I'm good." And then he was like, "Oh."
You know what that reminds me of? When I visited Alina in Boston, we had to buy a baby gift for one of my friends. Remember, we went and we bought a carrier at Target.
Yeah.
And we were both so frazzled. We were such a disaster. We were like running around the baby section, like trying not to look at things, but we didn't know where we were going. And like, it was clear that we were both so anxious. Like, we must have looked like crazy people.
Absolutely.
I remember we were like, "Where's the baby carriers? Where are the baby carriers?" And they're like, "We got it. Run, run, run."
We found the baby carriers. We were like, "Is this one, grab one."
That's exactly what we did. I think that it's something that like not just people who are grieving a loss of a child go through. Like I kind of feel like when you break up with someone and you like go to the restaurant where you had dinner with them, or like I feel like that memory with my grandmother, like there's those times where you can look at something and vividly see that it looked different before. It was like so clear when it looked so different before. Yes. And that it's so painful. It hurts. I know exactly the feeling that you're describing, and it's really hard. And I know when you got in the car, you called me when you left, and you were really, really upset. You were really crying. And I know I did not know this at the time, but you recorded this conversation. So I have no idea what I said. I'll give you one guess what I was doing, Alina. I give you one guess. What do you think I was doing?
Were you driving?
Of course. I live in Los Angeles. All I do is drive. So I have no idea.
All right.
But let's
Are you ready?
To
it. Hi.
Hi.
You had a hard time?
I did. But I did it.
It was really hard.
I did it.
That was really hard. You did it?
Yeah, I'm back in the car.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
That was really hard.
I just miss him so much.
No. You're babies.
I remember like carrying him, and he would like look around at the aisles, and I remember going to the checkout and her saying he was so cute, and asking how old he was, and I said he's 3 months old, but this is his first time to the grocery store because it's COVID.
You're probably so proud of your first grocery store run. You did it successfully. You had him in his little carrier.
I was.
It was an outing. Probably took forever to get out the door in the morning.
It did.
And it was cold, too. I don't know how you did that.
Yeah, it was cold.
It was cold.
Anyway, I got tomato juice, and I got grapes, and I got ice cream.
And I did not buy bananas. I didn't buy bananas.
You did a really good job. You got everything on your list.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you did it.
I did it.
You did it. You did it.
I can't believe this was this hard 10 months after he died.
I know. I know. You're so sad because your baby died, Alina.
Yeah, that's right.
Going to the grocery store is hard because your baby died.
Yeah.
There's something so raw about that call, you know?
I'm feeling really emotional just listening to that, both because I can hear the distress in my voice. You know, it's hard to hear yourself when you're so upset and so vulnerable and in so much pain. And so it's for me to listen to in that way, and that makes me feel, you know, really emotional and sad. But I hear that call, and I am just so grateful for you, because that's exactly what I needed to hear. That was exactly what I needed to hear.
I think when I was listening to it, like I said, I had no idea what I had said at the time. But when I was listening to it, I was switching the roles in my head, because there have been many times where 90% of the time I'm calling you. 95% of the time I'm calling you. And it sounds the exact same in the reverse. You say the exact same things. And it's just so clear that the other person is carrying the grief with you.
Yes.
You know, they're not saying, you did it, it's done, let's move on with your day. You know, they're saying like, yeah, this is hard. And I think society wants to make you feel better. Our people want to make you feel better, but you can't feel better. Right. No one can make you feel better. No. And I do feel better sometimes. I mean, you guys have heard me. I've had a couple of good days in a row. I don't always feel like this, but when you feel really awful, like, you don't need somebody to make you feel better. You just need somebody to be like, yeah, this is terrible. It's sad that your baby died. That's why it's so hard. Yeah, it's so hard. And I wonder if we have been taught that we're too emotional, or that we have too many feelings and it's just hormonal or whatever it is. And I think that maybe we don't validate our own feelings. And so we need other people to say, like, you're really sad for a reason, and that's valid. And I hear what you're saying too. And it's like, I had started following like parenting Instagram accounts when I had Quinn. And I feel like all of the parenting Instagrams that are like talking about how to deal with toddlers when they're having tantrums are like, validate their emotions. Like, just let them a minute. And like, when you hear you saying, you feel really sad right now. And it's just, like, it really works. It really works. It really works. I only know because I've been on the other side, and like, you just want someone to say like, I'm with you and this is so horrible. Yeah. Yeah. And also I think there's another piece of it. Like, I don't know if everybody feels this way, but like, I have so much judgment for myself for like, because there's a piece of my brain that's like, why was it so fucking hard to go to the grocery store? Like, yeah, your son died, but he died 10 months ago. Like, why is it so sad to go into the grocery store? And to just hear somebody say like, it's hard because your son is dead. Like, yes. And I actually remember what I was thinking when I said that. I was thinking that I wanted to say, you're going through one of the most difficult challenges in the human experience. Like, I almost want to say, like, obviously you're having a hard time in the grocery store because this is the biggest challenge that you could go through. Like, your response has got to be as big as the event. And the event is really, really, really big. Really big. Yeah. That felt good to hear. I mean, hard, but there was something about it that felt good to hear. I think it just feels good to know that people care. Yeah, it really does. I'm so glad I recorded that. I mean, you and I have probably
20 calls like that in the logs, right? Not recorded.
Yeah, 20 this week, 20 from this week. Now, 20 today.
Off the top of my head, I can think of when you were at that event and you were trapped and you had to get out of the event.
Oh yeah, it was an event and there was a baby at the event, at this professional work event.
The baby was wearing that thing that Aiden had.
Yeah, he was wearing the sun hat that Aiden had, and I ran into someone's house and I didn't know how to find the bathroom, and then I got I was stuck in their bathroom on the floor. I remember that. I called you and you're like, just leave, just go, don't even bother about this event, just get out of there. And then I remember the one time, let me tell you something to all of our wonderful friends. Alina, on average, how many times a day do I call you?
On average, you probably call me 5 times a day.
Okay, on average, how many times do you call me a month?
5.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So I remember the one other time that you called me was when you went to the office and someone asked, how's your baby?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I had to tell them she was very distressed. I had to comfort her.
Yeah.
And it was so sad, but I held it together. And then I got out to my car and I was hysterical and I called Judith. That was for your.
And I was in a waiting room of a doctor's office and this woman was sitting next to me and she was like, that was so nice to hear. She said, I lost babies too. I remember she said that. She's like, I lost children too. And then I said, was it a son or a daughter? And she said, I've lost both. And I don't know if she meant like miscarriage. I wasn't sure at what stage, we weren't friends. We were just sitting next to each other in the waiting room. But I remember she said, like, no one ever talks to me about it. I don't ever talk about it. But hearing that call was like, I think I needed to hear it. So have we spoken with this? How it feels like everyone in our lives out of nowhere have lost children. Like I knew no one before, and now it feels like much more common.
Yes, coming out of the woodwork. I mean, I went and got my second COVID vaccination in May, and it turned out that the nurse that was giving me my COVID vaccination lost a son to SIDS 30 years ago, which was just absolutely mind-blowing that I would have been paired up with this woman out of all vaccination sites and then all the nurses at that site. It was just such a weird, freakish coincidence.
Yeah. And remember when I got my second COVID vaccine, which was 12 days after Aiden died, 13 days after Aiden died, I was walking through the card aisle to get to where the shot was. And the cards were all sympathy cards. And I just remember looking at them, thinking to myself, I have every single one of these cards. Some of them I have duplicates. And I just started crying and sobbing. And the nurse was like, oh, are you afraid of shots? Like, it's not going to hurt at all. And I was like, no, my baby died. And then she was like, oh my God, do you need a minute? And she brought me to this waiting area. And the woman next to me was a grief doula or something. She was like a grief chaplain. And she had lost her mom. And I'll never forget what she told me. I'll just share this with everyone. This advice has really stayed with me. She said, grief is like being in the middle of an ocean storm. And she's like, you are going to be tossed and turned and thrown upside down and drowned, like everything horrible. And then for a minute, it's going to spit you out on a rock and you're going to get to rest and breathe. And she's like, over time, you'll be able to spend more time on that rock and less time in the water. And I think that's true. Like, I don't think the feeling ever goes away. Like the feeling you had in the grocery store, it feels like you're being tossed and turned under the ocean. But the difference between now and day 13 is that instead of spending 95% of the time in the ocean, you're spending less.
Yeah.
The same feelings, just less frequently.
I completely agree. Yeah. And I think when I was like in really early grief, I was desperate to hear that it got better because it was so excruciating. I mean, unbelievably excruciating. I was desperate to hear that it wouldn't always be this hard. And I sometimes would hear, or I would see on Facebook groups or something, people saying that it doesn't really get easier. And that was very distressing to me because when you're in it in the beginning, you really feel like you can't go on another minute, like let alone your life.
Yeah.
And I'll just say now, as someone who's a little bit further out, the pain when the grief washes over me, it is pretty much just as bad as it was in the beginning. I would say that does not really get easier. I mean, this grocery store incident, I did feel really sad. This was not like 100% like full on grief, but I do experience that sometimes. And that is just almost just as bad as those early days. But those days are so much less frequent. And like overall, my life has gotten better. It doesn't mean it's gotten easier. Like easier is not easy. Life is not easy now. And by any
life is hard and bad. Life is bad and hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the beginning, I wasn't mentally engaged in anything. I would float around everywhere, in the car, in front of a dinner table, and just kind of like be there, but not really there. And I asked people the same thing. Does it get better? Every time I would talk to someone who would lose a child, I'd be like, does it get better? When does it get better? When does it get better? Someone actually gave me, and no one would, everyone just says it takes time, or every journey is different. And that was really frustrating for me because I wanted to know when. And I say this with the caveat that everyone is different and every loss is different. But I'll just say for me, I would say I couldn't even breathe until 1 month. Like I couldn't even take a breath the first month. And then I would say by 4 months out, I was starting to regain consciousness. Mm-hmm. And then I would say by 6 months out, I could smile more and laugh. And then after that, like every month I've seen progress. And I'm not saying progress in terms of my grief, because I miss my son and I am not in a good place. But I would say progress in what I can handle. Like there was a time where I could not imagine going on a trip. I just couldn't imagine all the logistics that go through it. I couldn't imagine planning a birthday party or whatever I need to do. Like it was just so much for my brain to get out of bed in the morning. And I would say my latitude for responsibility or my latitude for being held accountable or doing anything like making a phone call has really grown. And my capacity to enjoy pieces of life has grown.
You say that, but you did also book the wrong flight for tomorrow, right?
Oh, yes. I did do that. I know.
Not to call you out.
That is 100% fair. Call me out. Okay, that's fair. I will say that I am really bad with dates and times ever since Aiden died. I've showed up to my therapist's office on the wrong day and the wrong time twice in 2 weeks. And that was, the most recent was last week. And then this week I'm going out of town with a lost mom tomorrow. We're going to Arizona. And she texted me and she said, okay, what time do you want to pick me up to go to the airport? And she's like, does 7:15 work? And I thought to myself, 7 a.m. for an 11 flight. That's a lot of hours. And then she told me the flight I'm on is at 7:55. And she had told me that so many times. She sent me the flight numbers that I was supposed to book. I don't know how I booked the wrong flight. I mean, I have grief. That's how.
But okay, so to your point though, when you were saying like, you know, at 1 month, at 2 months, at 6 months, I feel like I hit my stride emotionally where I was a little bit more emotionally even keeled at like 2 months, where that was like I could reliably make it through the day and only cry in the pockets, you know, where I was saying like, now I'm gonna go cry. Like it was I was less overcome out of nowhere with emotion.
Right.
Which was a relief because it's so tiring to just be out of nowhere hysterical. Not out of nowhere hysterical today, every once in a while.
Right. But not all the time.
Mm-hmm, yeah. But I do feel like I had a noticeable drop off in like I have started having a lot of like physical and mental symptoms at like the 3-4 month mark. Like I started being really nauseous and I started having a lot of anxiety again. So like it was like my emotions evened out, and then I started getting these other grief symptoms, and then the confusion kicked in at like 6 months where I was like my brain just like fundamentally just stopped working, like just stopped having any amount of concentration. So like I think my overall quality of life is trending upward overall. Like I really do think that, but it's interesting because it's like I get like pockets where I feel really good emotionally, but like my brain's not working. I'm not able to think. But then I feel like my brain's working again, but I'm also like spending a lot of time in bed because I feel really sad. So it's like definitely a lot of waves. But I think if someone's in early grief and listening to this, I do want you to know it will not always be as bad as it is.
Yeah.
For a second. It won't be. It does get better. It gets easier.
Yes. I struggle with that word better because maybe it just gets more manageable. How about that?
Yeah.
It gets more manageable. It gets more, I think that it's like my world, it used to be that my world is 100% grief, and now my world is like 90% grief, but that means the 10%, I could do things. I remember when I told you I had made a list of all the things I felt like I could never do again. And one of them was go to a concert. And then when I went to a concert, it was like the biggest deal. It was also a classical music concert, so it wasn't quite what I was imagining. And I was under the influence, but I went to a concert and I enjoyed myself, and it was a big deal being with all those people. Like, just sitting amongst people was hard for me in the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry you had a hard day.
Thank you. It was hard. I feel I feel like I'm trending upward right now. Last night when I went to bed, I could tell I was like on the precipice, like tomorrow's either going to be a bad day or this is the end. And I wasn't quite sure. Now going to bed, I can tell that I feel like I've gone through a little bit of a little period, and I think I feel like I'm through it and I feel a little bit better. I'm optimistic that tomorrow's going to be a better day.
Sometimes I just feel this need to like cry and have a meltdown. I feel it bubbling up inside of me. It's like I need to yell at something. I need to sob hysterically. Like, it's pent up, and then it just all needs to come out. And then after, it's almost like, okay, I got it out of my system.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, I have heard that the second year in a lot of ways is harder than the first.
I've heard that too, and I'm terrified.
I'm terrified too. I don't know what they mean by it, but I don't want to know.
Well, stay tuned, you guys. Stay tuned. You'll see us go through the second year.
Yeah. I am always grateful that you're 2 months ahead of me, because I just like watch you, and then I'm like, okay, I know what to do now. I know how bad it's going to be.
and I'm always grateful you're pregnant first, so I can watch how bad that is, which it's been bad. You've been so anxious.
It's been bad. It's not going great. Today I was talking to my therapist about it, and she's like, have you thought about what you're going to do in terms of sleeping when the baby's born? I said, yeah, I'm not going to sleep. She's like, oh, but do you plan on working? I said, yeah. She's like, so how are you going to work and not sleep? I haven't figured that out. I don't know. I'm not there. She's okay. She honestly said, I've been worrying about that. I've been thinking and worrying about that. I think it's really been weighing on her. How sweet is that? She's like, I don't know how you're going to do it.
Our therapists are the best.
The best. I was going to say, I think that this is a really good snapshot of what the bad days look like.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad that this happened.
Me too. Episode 4.
Episode 4. It makes me feel like, okay, like that was worth crying at the grocery store, because I feel like having that recording and sharing this with people, like I think that makes it like worth something, you know?
Mm-hmm. What do you want to call it? Like a very bad day?
Yeah. A bad day. Alina's bad day.
Alina's bad day. A bad day.
Well, okay guys, that's it for my bad day. Hopefully I'm going to go to sleep and I have a better day tomorrow. Thanks for being here.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!